Welcome. We are recording it so people can watch it on the website later if they wanted to, and so that's why I was kind of making sure sound. Even though you could hear me, if I talked loud, it wouldn't get, everything where it's supposed to be. Anyway, welcome. Hey, more of you came than I thought would, so thanks. I wanted to share, again, sooner than later, the, longer-ish, still short version of my summer, and again, so it could be recorded and people could watch it as well. Start my timer now. I have 57 slides in 20 minutes, so that tells you I have notes like, hey, don't talk too long here, don't talk too long there. Hopefully I want to show you a bit of what my summer was like. I also kept a journal, and so I jot things down. So I'm going to tell you some things I learned that would be, random thought of Ryan, and I kind of put them into a few different groups, because over the summer they kind of ended up into different groups. So I would carry my journal with me in many places, and try to write something every day, even if it was, something that happened or something we did, and no deep thoughts. But this summer, obviously, I was gone May 2nd to August 15th, and as I shared, last week, thank you for investing in me and my family. And I was just having a conversation with a neighbor who's a pastor in a different church body, and they're exploring the same thing: is how to care for workers. And he was thinking, even companies, how do you care for workers so that they stay fresh and work well? Thank you. For ours, and the grant that we applied for, you develop a theme, and then how you're going to spend time revolves around that theme. And so briefly, returning to first loves from Revelation 2, as Jesus has words for each of the churches. He says to the church at Ephesus, you've been faithful, you've been good, but it's more or less seems like you have lost your first love, is kind of the words meaning. Can you return to simple, heartfelt love for Christ? And so as a kind of launch pad for that, I thought, what are a number of things that I like to do or give me joy, but haven't had the time to spend doing? And so those are some of the things I spent time on this summer. So I'll tell you, that's a picture from Spain, a small fishing town in the north of Spain. And I had to take like 20 to get that guy to put his beak in the right direction before I clicked. These are pictures that represent a number of the things that I spent time on this summer. So I went to a number of worshipped at different churches with my family. But activities, I spent time doing music, both by myself and with family and other people. Spent extended time with family. I also read a number of books as well. I'll try to find a way to give you some maybe written reviews, because some of the books I read probably would be interesting to some of you as well. So this will kind of help guide some of what I'll talk through. Again, last week was the short version, and this is the longer. So if you were here last week, you heard some of it. Early in May, the first few days after I was done here, I went to Lincoln, Nebraska, and spent time at Grace Point Institute, which isn't that's the Catholic Center. But again, I deleted a bunch of apps from my phone. I made it very hard to do anything fun on my phone so that I didn't want to even touch my phone. So that was kind of my goal. So when I went places, I had locked it in the glove compartment and leave it. So a lot of things I don't have pictures of. But since they gave me a rental car Mustang, I had to get pictures of that. So I got a picture of it, and then I put it back in the car. So that's the Catholic Center. The Lutheran Center, where the counseling center is, on the other side. And I met with a pastor who is a Lutheran pastor, but also has a PhD in, I think it's clinical family counseling, but psychology. And so he runs a counseling center that does a lot of ministry to pastors and their families. So it was no other reason than self-care, and obviously for all of us, the last year and a half has been a lot. And so very good conversations. And again, as I shared last week, my wife suggested it to me, and I was like, no, I don't want to do that. And then I said, maybe I should. Kind of came around and thought, I'm just being another guy who doesn't want to go to counseling, right? That's just another stereotype that I don't want to be. And so it ended up being really, really helpful in so many ways through the conversations, and it made me, in some ways, a more patient dad to my kids and more present, and it really was helpful. So if that helps get any of you over the edge of, hey, I've been thinking about going to a counselor, go. Find a good, godly counselor and let them use the gifts God has given them to help you. Ah, yes, selfie in the Mustang, obligatory, of course. Here's the list of churches that we attended, just maybe for your interest or not interest, I don't know. Central Wesleyan down the street. A lot of these places I do know somebody that works there or some connected, and some of them not. But Central Wesleyan Faith CRC, which is down the street, our neighbor's church. Third Reformed, here downtown. Zion Lutheran in Bay City, some of you have been there. St. Lawrence Lutheran in Frankenmuth, my family goes, my parents and my brother and his family go there. St. Willebrord Orthodox Church in Holland. That's a very fascinating place. Glad to go. Fellowship Reformed on the north side. Bridgepoint, Trinity Episcopal in Bay City. My brother plays organ there a lot, so I played trumpet with him. One Sunday, Lakeshore Vineyard, neighborhood also. And then Segovia Cathedral in Spain. We were in Spain. I'll tell you more about that at the end. We went in a bunch of other churches, but we actually went to a worship service there. So I'll tell you some things that I learned, and I'm not saying these are absolute, total truth. You can say, Ryan, I disagree, and I'll say, that's fine. But as I journaled and jotted down, some of them are my musings and thoughts, and some were important to me. This would be categorized under things I learned kind of about church. Maybe not this church, but God's church. So things that I learned maybe in worship services or just came to me in thought. So the first thing I learned about church, this is in May. Going to church is hard. Going to church during COVID is even harder. And then going to church during COVID with children was near impossible. First 3 weeks after we weren't here, left in May, trying to go somewhere, a lot of churches had if you have kids, you have to register by Thursday at noon to go to the kids thing, or they can't, but we don't really want them in the service because sermons are long and they make noise, and we're like, where can we just show up and worship? So it made me realize, think of all the obstacles for you, and then maybe other people, or people that haven't been to church in 20 years, what are the obstacles in their way that easily don't get them to the door? And they would turn away and say, there's so many of those, right? And so it made me think, okay, as a church, how do we welcome people and make it easy to walk in here and be here and receive God's love? So that was a first challenge. Second thing I learned, other churches are not perfect either. Be it a sound system or a blatant mistake by somebody leading worship, or sermons that I wanted to, if I had my phone, I wanted to text somebody during or take a snooze in, and I'll tell you what, it gave me great comfort because it told me that people weren't there because everything is perfect there. I went to full churches with lots of people, and it wasn't perfect. People were there because they were known by other people, and they heard of the God that loved them, lived for them, and died for them. And of course we're not perfect, right? We're not supposed to be. We're here to worship God, and yes, we strive for our best. But so I found it comforting because, yes, I make mistakes, and we all do. 3, my kids are not allowed to go pee during the sermon, and neither am I. I learned that this summer. Ryan's bored, sermon's long, I gotta go pee. The kids aren't allowed to go. I'm like, oh, man, can I? So, I learned that this summer. 4, feeling bored in church is a good thing. Sometimes we think we have to be engaged, everything has to be great all the time, and if it's not, we're in trouble. Feeling bored's not necessarily a bad thing. Some of my most interesting, powerful thoughts were actually just sitting and kind of wandering my mind in church somewhere else. So if you're ever bored in church, hey, look, there's windows, there's hymnals, there's Bibles, there's good things happen. You can pray. How many times do you pray when I get it. You're not going to pay attention to every minute I'm talking. But just being there was rewarding and good and peaceful and prayerful. So even feeling bored in a church was a good thing. Okay, that's some of my things I learned from church. Now I'm going to switch gears back to see what I got here. Ah, yes, that's my dad being bored in church. To tell you a little bit, my brother and I take pictures of my dad sleeping and with somebody else in the picture and send them to each other. So that was, Carissa photobomb, and I love it. You can see message. So definitely, I was distracted during the sermon as well, apparently. And that was at Third Reformed here in Holland. So next, that was some of the churches we went to. Next, I'm going to switch gears to some music things that I spent time with. Some of you don't know, I studied music in college. My dad's a musician, my brother's a music teacher, my wife's a music teacher, so there's a lot of it in my family. And so being able to spend more time doing some music things, it was really meaningful and helpful. And someday I'll tell you the story of that, but not today. Ask me about that's Onward Christian Soldiers from a really old hymnal. Ask me someday and I'll tell you. My brother and dad both live in Bay City, and my dad's a retired pastor, my brother's a high school teacher. They both play in the Frankentrost band, which has been around since the 1890s, and I was promised there is beer at every rehearsal. I said, no, you can't, no. They're like, yeah, there's 4 coolers of beer around the room we rehearse, and nobody plays a note before they get a beer. I'm like, no, you're kidding. So I had to go and observe. I do not recall. There were 2 concerts I got to play with that. The director was kind. People in and out for the summer, so I got to sit in, read my dad's music, and play, which was fun. I got to play with my brother, who plays organ at churches regularly, so we got to play a Sunday together as well. But that was quite meaningful. About this, I spent some time at home playing through. That's from an 1890s Episcopal hymnal. And I played through a bunch of older hymnals, read them as prayers, and just kind of spent some slow time singing and praying and learning. Another thing in the picture was books. Studying God's Word, spending time in God's Word. I was supposed to be in Israel for about a month studying there. That fell through last year and this year. So changing gears, spent some more study time. Often pastor sabbaticals are, in part personal, part spiritual growth, part education. And so there's a list of probably 10, 12 books that I finished this summer. And like I said, I'll try to make a write-up of some of them. I think some of them you'd find interesting. I know some Spanish, so that's my New Testament. I keep it with me. It's, column for column, English, Spanish, and I try to read through that almost daily. Family time. Sam really wanted to kiss the fish. Didn't take much coaxing. We didn't fish that much, and we aren't that good, but we got to do some things together and make some cool memories and spend a good time together. We did that's at my parents' house. My parents, as I said, live in Bay City, and so we spent a few weeks there in late June into July. Let's see, I'll show you a picture of that. Nope, this is our kids. That's down by Saugatuck, the Oxbow Trail, if you know where that is. If you don't know where that is, go find it and walk on it. You can go there and see Lake Michigan and the dunes. That'd be like right where, what's the beach? Oval Beach, thank you. That's my parents' house in Bay City. That's the Saginaw Bay, and my dog enjoying that would be the sunrise. So I apparently couldn't sleep well because that's early, and I was up. But since you're up early, you might as well watch the sunrise, right? And so we got to spend time there. And there's Ben and Carissa. Ben paddling Carissa. I think he dumped her eventually. But fun sibling time together. Amy and her mom and her grandma. So that was a mom's side of the family gathering. So 4 generations picture together. And we did lots of tree climbing this summer as well. And we got to go camping. It's a very Michigan thing. This is Charity Island. It's right out in the middle of Lake Huron and the Thumb, and there's only one way to get there. And my aunt and uncle have a boat that they invited a number of relatives to go on. So they got to go. We had to swim in from wherever the boat had to park and throw the anchor and swim in to Charity Island there. But that was a meaningful memory for our kids this summer. For 2 days, I went up to the UP, to the Garden Peninsula, and stayed at a Catholic retreat center and did a silent retreat, which is exactly what it sounds like. You spend time alone, praying and being by yourself and journaling, and it's very good. Not necessarily easy, right? I leave my phone in the car and be alone with yourself and thoughts. And so I drove down. It was nearby. That's Fayette State Park. Very beautiful. Recommend going there. I have no tangents, Ryan, but one. Some of the oldest trees in Michigan are on that bluff there. 1,000-year-old trees, and they don't grow very thick because they're wedged into the rock the way they are. So they have a display at the state park. Very fascinating. So that was Justin, the counselor that I saw and met with again last week via Zoom at Grace Point. That was one thing he said. If you're a pastor on sabbatical, somewhere in your middle month, you must go away for 2-3 days silent retreat. That was one of the recommendations he said. That was very important. So made sure that happened. Oh yes, and if you're in the UP, you must eat a pasty, right? And not take pictures of yourself while driving on the bridge. And then at the last part of the summer, we went to Spain. That we were going to have to kick that again to last summer, and then it seemed like Americans were allowed, and it was going to work out. Our exchange student of 11 years ago, Marta, she is married and expecting in October, and 2 of our kids have met her, and we wanted to be able to meet, or our kids to meet her and go there and see her parents as well. Very good friends in England as well. Obviously, that wasn't going to work this year. Last year, we'd hoped to go there too. But we got to be in Spain for a little over 2 weeks and see her and her parents and drive around and do some other things. This is Segovia. That's, again, a 2,000-year-old, you can see for scale people. I think there's 167 arches in the aqueduct there that goes from out to, that's how important water is, that the Romans would build all of that to get water from outside of town, fresh water, into town. And here's a lot of just pictures. My niece and goddaughter, she came with us as well. So that's Sophie. She goes to Valley Lutheran High School in Saginaw, where my brother teaches. So a number of pictures. Ooh, that one got blurry. Oh, well. That's in Toledo, south of Madrid in Spain. That would be Marta's parents' house, her mom and dad, Marta, her husband, Alphone. And I'm taking the picture, so I'm not in it. In certain parts of Spain, they eat what's called cochinillo, which is baby pig. Kids loved it. I'll tell you a story another time. Selfie with art, because that's Caravaggio, kind of a famous painting, and there was no don't take pictures sign, so why not? Selfie with good art. In the north of Spain, they eat octopus, so that's what we did. Rented kayaks. That was our lunch on the cooler with Carissa and Mom. This is Santiago in the northwest of Spain. A legend has it that St. James the disciple, is buried in the church there, so you can go see underneath the altar there is his grave. And so big pilgrimage routes end there. The Camino de Santiago, a lot of people have done, or parts of. They also have a very large called censer for incense, and for their high mass, like it's huge and it goes all the way up. They have to, like the priest starts just swinging it like a big swing, and it swings back and forth. You can watch it on YouTube. That's and here's a hike we did. Very cool hike. Watching the time here. And then we did go into southern France in the Pyrenees on our way over. We saw Marta's family again in Barcelona, as they have a basically a cottage there. And so that's in the Pyrenees in southern France. Aww. And there's traffic up there. Free-range llamas, there's a lot of them. And we had to stop for like 5 minutes. And it seemed rude to honk, but... And I said last week, I got to rent a bike. I don't bike too much anymore, but free morning, and rented a bike and rode up one of the, you can see the snaking road a little bit, rode up, which was the final, that was the ending of stage 18 of Tour de France this year. And it took me like an hour and a half, and probably took them like 15 minutes, so. Again, that was a day we spent with Marta's parents, Mediterranean. More brother-sister love. It's a lake in Pyrenees in southern France. And then in Barcelona, there's a very beautiful church you can check out on the internet. It's still being built, called La Sagrada Familia, means Holy Family. And it's based on, the whole theme of it is the life of Jesus. And so there's all the stonework and windows, and it's just absolutely beautiful. And so let's go in there. That's made to look like forest of trees. And it's really unlike any other church you've been in. And they have on the back door, that's the Lord's Prayer engraved in many, 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 many languages that you can go and take a selfie with. And that I use as my background slide. That's just the organ and some of the windows from there. Okay, with my last few minutes. Things I learned that go into the personal category. One, the limits of my life make the meaning in my life. How often do we think, I just want to get rid of all of, we think freedom means not having any responsibility, not having to do anything, when actually, it's all of those things that limit me, like my kids and family, that actually give my life meaning. And so, midsummer, we're like, we really miss our Zion family. We really miss, it's not that... we missed you all, and having still being dad and school and kids, realized, instead of wanting to get away from things, which we often tend to, those are the things that actually give our life meaning, even though having to get up early and make lunches and be dad, that's what gives us meaning and value. So that's one thing I wrote in my journal. 2, unhurried time is good. How much of our lives is hurrying and not just being able to sit? 3, my kids noticed my presence and my absence. It really was within a couple weeks. Sam said, I'm really glad you're on sabbatical. And I said, well, why, Sam? And he said, well, I feel like I'm getting to spend a lot of time with you. They noticed. So thank you. And 4, I became a more patient dad. That was true. And my wife noticed that. And 5, there is no silver bullet. There's no silver bullet to make everything perfect in your life, to make everything go away, to make there is no amount of rest and time off that would make me a perfect human being. Somebody realized I'm still a sinner in need of grace. You can become more healthy, more rested, more vibrant, but I had a professor that said everybody's looking for the silver bullet to say why they're right and everybody else is wrong. It's just not there. Life is made up of a lot of small pieces that God inhabits all of them and guides them. And 6, I also learned I'm very allergic to poison ivy. I still have the scars on my arms. Ugh. I have to be reminded like every 7 or 8 years. And a few general things I learned. A lot of people are carrying a lot of pain. I'm sure that's some of you. Between friends and community people and other things, it just became, not that ever didn't know that, but it just became really apparent. A lot of people are carrying a lot of pain, which drives some of the others. People really do need grace. People need grace. But we started to notice lately, it seems like no one has it to give it. And I think it's probably a product of the last year and a half. People are maxed and stressed, and COVID's been hard, and it hasn't ended, and without giving specifics away of different people and places, we've seen a number of examples where a lot of people are carrying a lot of pain. We really do need grace, but no one seems to have it. And I guess that became one of my prayers for me and for Christians. Can we? Is there a way that we can be filled by Jesus to be able to extend grace to other people? Last is the way to your soul is through your body. What you do to your body, you also do to your soul. How often do we divide and say, that's one of the things that Justin, the counselor, said, basically, hey, if you've overworked and been tired, you've done that to your soul, not just to your body. Like, oh, huh. So going for a walk in the fresh air, and you've done that to your soul and also to your body, that's good. How we care and how we live, we are body and soul, one person. And so even standing up, sitting down, singing and worship, the way into our soul is actually we live in our bodies. So that's been a fun thing for me to ponder as well. And I'm out of time, so I'm gonna. How many slides do I have left? I think that's it. I made it at 25 minutes. And the band needs to get to sound and ready for worship. But hopefully, Wednesday Bible studies in September, we're going to continue. We're going to regather for those. And I can unpack a little more in pieces here and there. But I want to give you kind of a full, longer overview. Thank you again for coming today. And thanks for investing and supporting and praying for us. And go in peace. Have a good Sunday.